Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Let's get into today's topic. Today, I'd like to discuss the 40% rule. Now, over the past week or two, we've been having some conversation around mindset. More specifically, how to build a positive and possible mindset, how to eliminate limiting beliefs. And this is just a continuation of those conversations as we talk about this 40% rule. Now, what is the 40% rule? Maybe you've heard of it before, maybe you haven't. The 40% rule is a concept that I don't know if it was originated by the Navy SEALs, but I think it's most often associated with Navy SEALs and other military, elite military forces. It's this idea that whenever your mind and or your body are telling you that you've reached the limit, that it's time to tap out, that you've got nothing left, you're actually only about 40% of the way there with respect to your true potential. In other words, whenever you feel like you can't go any further or give any more effort, there's still a reserve, a significant reserve of physical and mental strength that you can in fact tap into. The 40% rule is one that helps push individuals, push people beyond whatever their perceived limitations may be, whatever their limiting beliefs may be. It's about developing resilience. It's about persevering. It's about mental toughness. And it's about training the mind to ignore these self-imposed barriers and push through these difficult situations. Whether these situations are intense physically or intense mentally or just demanding in general, we can push through these barriers. And whenever we're feeling this pain, whenever we think we've got nothing left, we're really only 40% of the way there. We've got a whole 60% in reserve, potential reserve to tap into. Now, let me give you an example, okay? And I'm going to stick with this Navy SEAL theme, okay? I'm going to guess most of our listeners are not SEALs, but you can imagine a Navy SEAL recruit going through the physical training, the long distance running, the beach training that they do during BUDS, their Hell Week, where they're pushed to the absolute limit of their ability. And as they run, their body starts to feel exhausted. Their muscles are aching. Their mind begins to tell them, you can't do it. You can't go any further. And at that point, many may feel, if not all of them, may feel like, hey, I'm there. I'm at my max. I can't do any more. And they start to consider giving up. If you've watched or learned anything about Navy SEALs or BUDS, you may have seen them ring the bell when they're done, if in fact it's time to give up. And there's honor, by the way. Just the simple fact that they're going through that is honorable. But only a certain percentage, a rather small percentage of them make it all the way through. Now the 40% rule comes into play here, right? For those that recognize when they're in this pain, when their bodies are at their limits or what they perceive their limits to be, what some acknowledge or are aware of is that it's just their perception of their limits. And maybe those perceptions are not very accurate. Maybe they have untapped potential. Maybe they're only 40% of the way there despite the pain. And so those that get it, instead of giving in to the fatigue and the discomfort, they push themselves further. They focus on mental toughness. They ignore the pain. They ignore the exhaustion. And they keep going despite this massive, massive internal resistance. And as they continue running, and as they keep pushing through, their body starts to adapt. Shockingly, the pain starts to subside. And they realize they are capable of going so much further than they initially thought. They tapped into that additional 60% that they just hadn't accessed before. And this newfound determination, this mental resilience, carries them through the rest of the training. And they surpass what they believe was even possible. So that's just a good example of the 40% rule in play, in action. Now, many of our listeners have had similar experiences, maybe in an endurance event. Maybe you're running a marathon, or you're going through some triathlon competition or something of that nature. And there's almost always a moment in time, and I can tell you personally, as a guy that's done a fair amount of triathlons and marathons and competed in them, there has not been a single race or competition that I've done where I didn't get to a point where I said in my head, man, I think I'm done. Like, my quad is so strained right now, or cramping, or gosh, I feel like, I'm getting sick, or man, I should have slept more. You start having all these crazy conversations in your head, and you're like, gosh, I don't think I can make it. But you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, and somehow the energy changes. Your attitude changes. The closer you get to the finish line, you start to feel better. And that's the 40% rule, right? Like, whenever I have these feelings, if I remind myself, Brian, you're only 40% of your way there with respect to your potential. There's so much more if you could just push through this. And I have that doubt. I know that just through having this experience time and time again. Every race, everything I do, I'm going to go through a moment of pain. I'm going to go through a moment of despair. I'm going to want to tap out. But if I could just get over that, there's so much opportunity on the other side. Business, same sort of thing. There's so many times in my business career where I'm like, gosh, I just don't know if I have it in me. I just don't know if I can keep going on this. And I recognize the 40% rule at play and think, gosh, if I could just get over this hump, the pain will subside. I'll get more energy and I'll turn the corner. Now, the 40% rule, it's not a specific 40%. I you could go research it. I don't know. I don't think there's any science backing it. I think the idea, though, is you got a hell of a lot more in the tank than you realize. So there's no measurement or data necessarily, but it's more symbolic and motivational. And it just represents this untapped potential that we have, and it's almost always more than we think. Along these lines, and where I want to wind down today, I want to share with you a quote or a phrase that comes out of the book Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. And I believe it was in his interview of a guy named Chris Sacca, S-A-C-C-A, is where I saw it. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's who said this. And what Chris Sacca had said was, and this is me paraphrasing, whatever you experience throughout your day, whatever you're going through during that day, or whatever race you're running or competition you're in, where you feel that pain, when you want to give up, when you want to tap out, recognize that no matter what, tonight you're going to be in your bed. And potentially make that your mantra. Tonight I will be in my bed. Tonight I'll be in my bed. I know it sounds funny, but please know that no matter what you struggle with today, physically or mentally, no matter how you spin it, no matter how difficult it may feel, you're going to end up laying in your bed, looking up at the ceiling. It's going to be dark, and you'll be closing your eyes, and the next day will be here before you know it. So I love that idea. I can tell you that when I've been, again, in these endurance events or whatever, which is my example, I'm sure you all have your own personal examples, I know that I'm repeating this sort of thing in my mind, and no matter what pain I was experiencing, I know it's temporary. And that no matter what, at the end of the day, I'm going to be in my bed, and that's a good spot to be. So take that quote, combine it with the 40% rule. I think it leads to this limitless mindset that we've been talking about. The focusing question for you, where can you leverage this 40% rule? Where do you feel maybe like you're about to give up, or what do you have coming up in the future where you know you're going to have some pain, or you know you're going to have some anguish, you're going to be tested, there's going to be a moment when you want to tap out, where you can think, gosh, I remember talking about that 40% rule. If I could just get over this hump, I've got so much left in the tank. Just got to get there. That's all I have for you today. the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.